Hi, and welcome back to the show. And I've got a couple of gentlemen in the studio from Belper. What an interesting business it is. It is Peter and Stuart. Now, we're actually based in West Australia, but Peter, you actually started this business, or you actually came from Queensland, I understand.
That's right.
Now, I guess the big question is, I mean, Queenslanders will tell you, perfect one day, or beautiful one day, perfect the next.
Well, there was only one problem, and that was Stuart got himself romantically tangled up in Western Australia. plus the fact that he was doing his masters over here under a very competent bloke at the University of Western Australia. So, so those two things together, and plus the fact that the design, the type of pile that we were doing at the time was more suited for the Perth area because a lot of sand here.
I was going to say, we're very sandy here. That must bring great challenges to a business like yours. And Stuart, you've taken over from Dad. You've gone through that succession and running it now. What was some of, I'm just interested because I know John Broons comes on the show and he's talked to you and he was a family business advisor. What are some of the complexities from a family perspective when the business is changing hands? Is there new ideas? Is there difficulties communicating?
I don't think there is really. I think we sort of have a constant communication. It's pretty much not like, I hear from Stuart once a month.
Right.
He's pretty much every day, we'll be doing this or we'll be doing that, and I mean more and more he's sort of playing off his own bat as I get older and sort of stepping back. He's got to fill the void, and he's doing a good job at it. So but I still have my finger stuck in the pie.
I was going to ask that. Stuart, taking over a family business, was it something you always wanted to do? I guess a lot of people are in your position where it's the son stepping in, taking over from Dad. Was it always something you saw doing, or did it kind of morph and one day you woke up and went, actually, you know what, this is great?
No, it didn't. I went and did my own thing, did an engineering degree, and then I was studying a master's degree over here, and I'd been involved in the business. And I saw the opportunity for the business here because there wasn't a lot of providers, and the Perth market was growing, and subsequently it grew fairly rapidly, which was good timing for us. So I had a chat to Dad about it, and we took a bit of a punt and brought a rig over, and it was a long, hard grind. And we've now got ourselves well established in the market here, and we'd like to think we're one of the #1 providers to Western Australia.
Yeah, you certainly are. I must say, I mean, we talk to a lot of business people on the show, but it's quite unique when you get father and son and working so closely together. Other father and son businesses out there, they're obviously getting to that age, son's like getting to that age where they're going, oh, Dad's ready to hand over. What would be some of your advice you'd give to someone in that situation that you've actually gone through?
Well, if you're pointing that question at me, and I think I'm the one who has to answer that. I think you've got to be prepared to step back a bit, I think, and not poke your nose into everything that's going on. I strongly believe in that. If you're not there, then someone has to be responsible. And Stuart was prepared to take the responsibility, so it was handed to him pretty much. I think not be too greedy either.
Right.
I think if you're trying to pull too much out, there's not much left for anything else.
True.
In a family business, of course, there's all the pressures, wives, other kids.
I was going to say, you've got all the other complexities brought in as well.
Well, they come into it, and with John's help, that sort of sorted a lot of that out from our point of view. It's made it a little bit easier, we can all breathe a little bit easier.
Which is always good news, isn't it? Stuart, for the sons out there, or even the daughters out there going to step in and take over from Mum or Dad, what would you say, a bit of advice from as they go through that process? What did you do to make it easy for yourself?
I think I probably made it hard for myself, but my attitude was always, the business was fairly small when I got involved, and to me there didn't seem to be a lot of point in establishing too much about how things were going to pan out until you had something worthwhile, until you had something worthwhile. So I built the business up to a point, and then came to an agreement with Mum and Dad about how things would proceed from that point forward. And it is difficult, you know, as Dad said, there's a lot of entities and everybody's got a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
And it's also very important to realise that everyone's at different stages of their lives. You know, some people want very different things out of the business. They just want a steady, guaranteed cash flow. And, you know, younger people in the business might want to take more risk and borrow more money. And there's a lot of different positions and a lot of balancing that needs to be done. But I suppose to directly answer your question, I think it really requires the assistance of an external person, and in this case we used, you know, John Broons was very helpful for us. But you've really got to have someone, I believe, standing on the outside looking in, so they can weigh up the different positions that people find themselves in, because we've all got our own perspective, and we tend to see things from our own point of view, funnily enough, from time to time.
Yeah, just break there. Give us 1 second. Just put your arm on top of that. Yeah. Go on, I'll just
so yeah, getting someone in who is an expert in that field and can look externally and has been through the same sort of his family business experience and has all the training and the relevant tools to combat all the different problems that come up. And I really John did a fantastic job, and it wasn't an easy charter, that's for sure.
No, and your business is quite unique. Can you tell us a little bit about your business? What do you? Yeah, we get it. You do pilings, challenges here in WA because we live on a sand pile. But what is it Bell Pile actually does?
Well, I think where we set ourselves apart from our opposition is really that we have a high level of engineering in the business, and we engineer and re-engineer solutions. So a lot of the time what will come out, you know, what the architect will want and what the structural engineer will draw up won't be finalised when we get hold of it, and you know, we'll come up with the most efficient way to deliver a solution. And we've got a high involvement with the universities and do a lot of R&D and a lot of quality testing, making sure things work properly and that we're delivering good value for the clients, not over robustly delivering and not over engineering. Trying to be a good value provider.
Because your concrete pilings, I understand, you use them when just a normal, what we would call a slab, isn't good enough. That's what you do, isn't it?
When it's too heavy.
Yeah.
A single story house, okay usually, but once you start going up and putting more weight on it, the sand is going to subside, and there's that movement which is going to cause cracking and all sorts of problems. So therefore you've got to put the piles underneath it to transfer the load from there down into something more solid. Where that is, that has to be done by testing the soils.
Yeah, right.
And this is where Stuart's expertise comes in, and the other engineers, because they can pick up where the soils are. They get these special probes and drill holes and take cores, all these sorts of things, to determine what sort of ground is down deeper and what you're going to transfer it onto.
Yeah. And
whether it's reliable, you know, whether the thing's going to stay there, it's not going to move again, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing. Someone who's looking at that and realise they may have and either got some land or they're going to make a building and they want to talk to you guys, do you have a website they can visit?
Yep, we do. It's just www.bellpile.com. But just on what Dad was saying, just some sort of to illustrate, you know, maybe, you know, some other applications for piles, the Subiaco light towers would tip over if they didn't have piles underneath them.
Okay.
So instead of having like a huge piece of concrete, we only had a fairly small amount of room that those towers needed to be founded in. So they were put on a group of piles on a cap.
Yeah.
Another application is high-rise buildings in the city. The footprint of the building is too heavy for the ground, so you need to put in concrete piles. And then an unusual application we've only just finished is down at the Greenbushes lithium mine, where the new plant site is located on a tailings dam. So there's sort of 10 to 15 metres of mud that you've got to sit a new plant on. So there's another application for piles. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, there's a lot of varied applications and different structures. And as you run out of room in a city and you run out of the good ground, there's a high requirement for piling.
Is that what keeps this business interesting? All these different challenges, no one job's the same?
That very much so. Yeah. But that's more, I mean, Stuart cops that, not me anymore.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Guys, thanks for coming in. Peter Stewart, Bell Pile. And what was your web address again, Stuart?
www.bellpile.com. John, I was wondering if you could probably, seeing that you've tackled our family business pretty well, I think, Perhaps you could just give us a little bit of a rundown on a couple of the hurdles you had to jump over to arrive where we have in a satisfactory end result.
Well,
would you mind doing that?
No, pleasure. It was a really interesting experience working with you and your family. My first connection obviously came through as a referral, and I had to put a proposal to the family talking about what I needed to do, what I perceived I needed to do. So in scoping up the works that I saw, I needed to meet with you, Peter, and Sue, your wife, to talk about what I believe the family might need to go forward, and then get clarity about who else in the family needed to have conversations with me. Because you do have 3 kids, and of those 3 kids, Stuart's married, so I needed to find out what his wife thought of the direction of the family and the business. So there are other 2 children who aren't in the business, who don't live in Western Australia. They live on the other side of the country, so I had to go and visit them. And you know, one of the siblings who had worked for the business, I've been told had worked for the business but wasn't working there now, he had some trepidation about talking to me, but we had some very good conversations, so I had to travel and see him. I had to travel and see your daughter in New South Wales. So, and then I had to meet with you and your wife in Brisbane. So there was a fair bit of travelling to catch up with everybody. So the logistics were an interesting exercise, timing it all so that I could see everybody and still keep track of what I need to keep track of, to find out what your family values were, to see if you could all talk together, that you all still wanted to be together, and what that dynamic looked like. The conversation with your accountant I had to have principally so I could see that he understood the family dynamic as well, because having an accountant who is understanding of the family dynamic makes it easier rather than just looking at it from a tax perspective, especially when you're talking about succession and transfer of wealth over time. I mean, you're still only young, but one day things will transfer. So there was a fair bit of travel. There was getting a picture of everybody's personal picture of how things were, a little bit of the past to see where some of the problems might have started, and then I wanted to have an idea from everybody of what they thought the future might look like for them. So it was a fair bit of intelligence gathering, trying to document it, get a picture of how the dynamics worked. And your family does communicate very well. From a business point of view, you are on the phone regularly. I know the 2 of you are on the phone regularly, but also from the bigger picture, I know you speak with your other children about how the business works and what your future thoughts are from the family wealth, the accumulated family wealth, how you want that to transition over time. So there was quite a bit of ground to cover. I had to have a fair few check-ins. So as conversations went, there were phone calls sometimes with individuals, but also times where I caught up with you and Sue in Perth, and followed up with each family member along the way to make sure that the outcomes were as you wanted in the first place.
I don't think it probably, John, that it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't work out perfectly, but you did a good job in sorting it out. That was more the point, I think. You know, that we can all sit back. Stuart's happy, and he's the bloke who's running the business, and he's got to be happy. If he's not happy, the business is not happy. And you know, none of us really are going to you know, prosper.
And it's important, sorry to butt in, but I think it's important for me also that there is an external, you know, person who's come in and checked things out and worked out what's going on and made the decisions. It's not a case of, well, this is how it's going to be, you know, or ongoing or that type of thing. This is where everybody stands, and this is, you know, this is how this is a solution.
It's an interesting thing. The outside person, in this case me, I've got to be careful not to bring in my own thoughts and ideas. So do you feel that you really were working with your own thoughts and I wasn't forcing any issues? Because that wasn't my intent.
No, I think actually, I think my wife commented on that actually. She said, you know, you were able to keep it very neutral. She felt, you know, your comments, there was nothing she couldn't read anything personal actually coming from you. You know, you were just looking at the problem and making a comment on it.
Well, that was my
I thought, yeah, and that's the way you came over.
Very good.
You know, as you say, I think the answers were all there. We just all needed to talk about what we all wanted and how we saw things, and how that could come together to allow things to continue on in an amicable way that everyone's happy with the outcome.
And it's working.
Well, that's proof of the pudding, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
That it is working.
Yeah.
So from going forward, do you find a value in staying in touch with me? Is there value for you in that?
Look, definitely. I think we just need a little bit of nudging on the way.
I hope not in the you know, the big sense, but you never know when we need a little bit of advice. So.
Sure. No, that's good.
I think one of the things you taught me is that you know, you can't always fix everything. Sometimes you've got to accept some things and get on with it. And you know, I'm getting there, but one of the things you helped me with is keeping me on track a little bit sometimes. So yeah, I appreciate that. But I think it's an ongoing process, and it's not an easy process. It's something that requires a lot of work, and it's ongoing work. And certainly from my point of view, you know, when you're the next generation, it's good to have clarity, and it's good to have knowledge of how things are going to unfold. And I think that's really important for the whole family, so that everybody knows whether we all agree or don't agree. There's a bit of a plan in place for how things are going to go forward, and I think that's very important. You know, you hear story after story about how family businesses, you know, when it gets to the point where, you know, the matriarch passes on, things don't work out so well. And I think that's what we're trying to avoid, you know, is that if someone's gone to a lot of trouble and effort and sweat and tears to build up a business, that there's a way that we can keep it going and it can transition, you know, to the next generation.
Irrespective, I think, of sometimes of what some of the other people think, there is a plan, and they've got to fall into that plan. They mightn't like it totally, but that's the only way it's going to work.
Do you think there was a great focus on the history, how you actually got to here, that you actually recognised that step by step there were different challenges along the way? I know the challenges because I've worked with you and I've had the privilege of seeing it, but nothing ever really just flows so smoothly and easily. There's the ebb and flow of day to day, but having some sort of sharing of that with the next generation, with Stuart's kids, you know, are they going to learn the family history and the family story?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and they're already part of it. You know, I've got a son who's very interested in what goes on. Whether he goes into the business or not, I'm not sure, and whether the next generation from my sister or maybe my brother, they get involved. Who knows?
I don't think so.
But
I think it'll be that way.
We'll see what happens.
Well, thank you very much for coming along and sharing with us today.
Thank you, John.
It's really wonderful to have you here in Perth again, Peter. So I know you'll be heading back to the Sunshine Coast at some stage.
Very shortly, yeah, Thursday,
and at least the weather here is nice and sunny for you. So thanks very much for coming along, greatly appreciated. And thanks for joining us again today. I'm John Broons, the Family Business Guy. You can get me on www.johnbroons.com or 0433 131 070.